So, Rings of Power, for their depiction of Numenor, took some references from some ancient civilizations, particularly the Minoan civilization. Did they do a good job with this? The answer is unfortunately no. Let's talk about it. My name is Peter Cap, I'm the author of the God Shard series, and welcome to another episode of Peter's No Cap History, the show where I combine my loves of history and fantasy to provide potential points of inspiration for aspiring fantasy artists, writers, and world builders. Now, let me just get this out of the way right now. I am not a fan of Rings of Power. I categorically disagree with what the show is trying to be in several fundamental respects. It is a show that is born from corporate citizenship and rainbow capitalism over respect for the lore and respect for good storytelling. For simplicity's sake, though, we're strictly going to be talking about the issues I have with Numenor and how they just ultimately dropped the ball with this. I was originally going to start this video off with some positives, and I guess there's a little bit still to be had here. And the fact that the shots of the cities of Numenor do look pretty good. It's not terrible by any means, there's a lot of detail. Unfortunately, considering how most scenes of Numenor are on tiny sets like this, these great shots don't really mean anything. And this is an issue of Rings of Power in general. What's basically the ultimate, most expensive wide shots in the history of TV, and they don't really utilize them in the actual scenes. I'm not going to be holding back regarding my criticisms here, because this show cost $1 billion. There is no excuse for any of these issues. Numenor seems to be taking a lot of cues from the Minoan civilization, and as well as other Bronze Age Greek stuff, which, explains the ethnicity of the Numenorians in this. At least for the most part, there's some weird outliers that don't make sense. Yeah, I can't say this is accurate to the lore. Like Tom Muriel here, for example, looks nothing like how she should. I do want to preempt one thing though. While I do think the forced representation is a contributing reason to why the show is bad, it is not the main reason why. There are some issues that still need to be addressed here. First of all, and this actually surprised me, when I was looking at reference pictures of what the Minoan civilization looked like, it looks way better than what Rings of Power actually did. There is so much more color in the stone stuff that's just not here. Now, there is some color in some other areas in Rings of Power, and this is where I'm actually going to defend the show, because some people criticized the colors of the show, thinking they were too bright and stuff, but no, that was fine. There's almost like a Thracian vibe here and stuff, which is interesting to see. Unfortunately, the fact that they're more of a Bronze Age civilization causes a lot of problems for them. I stopped watching Season 1 after the 6th episode, because we see a lot of Numenorian soldier stuff in this, and this annoyed the absolute F out of me. First of all, I need to talk about Tom Muriel here. She's not really based on the lore at all. I will also freely admit I do not like this actress. Her opinions on Tolkien's Legendarium and what the show is going to be are very asinine, and I categorically reject where she's coming from. There's no elegant way for me to put it. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But even if we ignore the lore inaccuracies, I need to talk about how she looks with this armor. Seriously, I love this. It's like supposed to be some kind of scaled, kind of lamellar, and it doesn't look like armor. The armor in the show in general is lousy 99% of the time. Look at this. We have a scaled armor here, and then what is this? Why is this? We have this fake scales? What? Why? Why is it? Who did this? $1 billion, everyone. I like the sun-like imagery here. It kind of reminds me of stuff like this, which again has nothing to do with Minoan civilization. This picture comes from Aurelian, which is 3rd century Rome. They repeatedly have to take cues from other civilizations because the Minoan civilization causes a lot of problems. And that also leads to the cavalry. Hey, this is Peter in editing here. I realized that I forgot to specify just why the Minoan civilization didn't have cavalry, and the answer is very simple. Cavalry literally wasn't invented yet. Cavalry, as we know it, wasn't really a thing until the stirrup was invented, and a lot of these Bronze Age civilizations simply did not have that ability. There's a reason why the ancient Egyptians rode chariots. And one thing I should know with a lot of these issues, okay, because the Rings of Power fandom has trained themselves to not only not care about lore, they actively try and force people to not look at this show as a Lord of the Rings show. So fine, okay, I won't talk about any more inaccuracies. Guess what? Your show still sucks. This doesn't even look good. This cavalry force does not match anything else about Numenor. Again, ignoring the fact it doesn't look like any depictions of Numenor at all, it looks dreadful. I think this is supposed to be like a Scythian kind of vibe, but again, the armor here is some of the worst armor in the show, and it has so much screen time. Look at this. It looks like fucking plastic. This does not look like armor. Like, why does it look so bad? Where did the money go? We also have this armor here, which looks a little bit better. I mean, this plate still doesn't look real, but it looks, it's not terrible. I could probably live with this. It's so insane that the armor that has the most screen time in this show, it looks so bad. Is it because it's used in a lot of fight scenes? Well, guess what? The Jackson films had real armor for their scenes, and those films came out 20 years ago. There is no excuse for these issues. This battle scene was so dumb. Why are the Numenorians not using their lances here? The fact that they had to go for a completely different civilization for their cavalry is a problem that was manufactured from the fact that they based this on the Minoans. I'm not saying that Iron Nations don't have cavalry. I mean, England, Japan, like these all have cavalry. It's just the fact that they went with a Bronze Age civilization so that they can force the representation in here has led to these issues. I wish there was more positives to talk about here, but there really isn't. It's amazing how there was so much money that was put into this and it still looks this bad. This stuff barely is recognizable as Numenor. And I can't even give it too much credit on its own merits because it still looks terrible. Again, this is what the Rings of Power fandom doesn't understand. There's more problems with this show than lore and accuracies. I'm going to have another video that elaborates on some of the issues I had with the forced representation aspect of this. Because, well, this shot right here was something I noticed when I first watched this. And this is a confusing shot that it doesn't make sense. But I don't want this video to go on too long, so I'm going to have a separate video for this. But yeah, I know this was a particularly heated video for me today. I'm very passionate about Lord of the Rings, and it frustrates me that so much Lord of the Rings media right now can be boiled into one or two categories. Something that people did not ask for, or something that would be cool that gets butchered. It's a frustrating time to be a Lord of the Rings fan. But, you know. So that's basically it. I will see you guys later.